Welcome. Come on in, close the door behind you, and pull up a seat to the grown-ups table. You're listening once again to the scenario. We are back. It's been a minute. Dana brought it to my attention that it's been maybe a month or more. It's definitely probably been more than a month since the last time we've done a show, and that's unusual for us. But truth be told, we've had quite a few unusual circumstances, a lot of personal things that have taken place, deaths in families and things of that nature.
Life was
that
life. January was not. 2025 was not playing.
Yeah, 2025 is coming in hard. It is coming in swinging. So, yeah, we're finally back. Glad to be back. It's been a minute, but we come back strong, like your trifling baby daddy after tax time hit.
That's how back his kids too. Because them his kids too.
Yeah, that's how back we are. Glad to be here. We are today getting into an episode entitled Selling Out, a conversation that is as old as Black people's time in America. Selling out, something that you can't avoid discussing. And I had been seeing over the last few months, this is something that really came up for me, Dana, a little while back, because I saw that discussion. Discussion happens every year. It happens every year. And especially now that we're online, where somebody gets into this thing about, they may not use the term selling out, but that's basically what we're talking about. What is it do we owe to our community? And what do we as a community owe to the people who we have expectations of? What should we expect of them? And that conversation came up at the beginning of the year. First thing that brought it to my attention was your boy Snoop and Nelly.
Hey now.
And I said, well, that's your boy. Don't be
You're
like
right.
that now.
I'm ashamed.
That's your
Go
boy.
ahead.
That's your boy. But it came up then, and I was like, you know what? This is a discussion we have every year. Maybe we're talking about Deion Sanders. Maybe we're talking about Snoop. Maybe we're talking about Kanye. Maybe we're talking about Oprah, Obama. I don't know. But it's a conversation we have every year. And I recognize that socially is something we've been talking about as long as we've been in this country. And it's a necessary discussion. So I was hoping to get into the heart of it today a little bit with a couple of different people whose opinions I, one, value. Two, I thought that all of them probably would have a really good perspective considering the fields that they're in. So with that being said, let's introduce our guests. We've got a panel of people who've all been here before. All of them in various capacities have been here before. A.G. Granderson, friend of the show. I had to get A.G. because of his background in communications, and I thought that he would really have some good stuff to say. A.G., how you doing, man?
Man, everything is great. Everything is great. I just got a piece of sandwich I got from Memphis yesterday. So I'm back in Nashville. That's always a treat to taste home when I get back. So everything is good. Belly's full. Let's do this.
All right.
I just saw it was selling out. I was like, am I the sellee or the seller? I don't know which one am I doing here. I'm just trying to figure out which side I'm supposed to be on here. But let's do it. Let's figure it out.
All right. Do you always get your sandwiches in Memphis, or is that just a special occasion this time?
Absolutely. I had to go to Memphis to check on the businesses down there. I would stay another weekend down in Memphis, so go down there and try to do a little building in my hometown. But I always come back home with some barbecue or a pizza sandwich. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pretty sure people from Chicago do the same thing. People from Atlanta do the same. You kind of bring that food back with you and savor it when you get back to Nashville. So I was excited about that, but I'm excited to be here, man. Thanks for asking me again.
Okay. Speaking of Chicago, Danielle McGee Gibson from Black Business Boom is also with us. Danielle, how are you?
Fantastic. I'm having a fantastic day. Been cleaning up the house today.
All right. So no sandwiches for you. No.
No sandwiches. But I definitely feel where AG is coming from, because when I go home now, I come back with some barbecue. Something is in my carry-on on the plane, bringing it back with me to Nashville. So I definitely feel you, and I can't wait till my next time home to get me some food.
The Italian beef is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I'm sure that there's like a lot of Chicago style food restaurants here, but it's not the same.
Yeah. Never is. It never is.
Not the same.
All right, and a friend of the show and repeat offender, who this time I'm bringing on because here's the honest truth, Ashley, and I've said this before. You often are one of the first people I think of with just about anything I can come up with, but you've made it clear that you want to make sure that somehow I always forget to bring you on with R&B, even though R&B is where your field, that's where you really are at home at, as far as with your label and things of that nature. But from Talented 10th Entertainment, Ashley Autumn. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm good, Van. I'm chilling. I feel like everybody else got a whole lot of energy, but my Saturday morning has been like super chill. I was on my way to Michael's to pick up paint canvases, and then I remembered I had to do this, so I had to turn around and come back home.
Okay, you
So,
paint?
like casually, not for like, ooh, let me sell this, but you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's good. That's a relaxing thing to do. It's great. I'm terrible at painting, but I've done it occasionally just for the same reason, just because it's something I like to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't consider myself like good either. I just throw some colors on there and see what come from it. Okay.
yeah. All right. So today's topic is selling out. And I did not want us to dig into that discussion without first attempting to define what we believe selling out is. Let me frame this once again, just to start from the beginning. In the reason selling out is a concept in our culture that has always been worthy of so much discussion is that for a large portion of time that we've been in this country, it has been important for us to know who is who. Who do we stand with and who do we not stand with? It was a life or death, and a lot of times it's been life or death situations. When we were enslaved, we needed to know who we could trust because there was simply just times some of us were not on the same team, even if we were all in the same field or in the same house or doing some of the same labor. We simply needed to know who we could and could not trust. That carried over to Jim Crow and has even become something post Jim Crow that we have always had to be concerned about because if we find out that someone who looks like us is not of us, it can cost us dearly. And the question has become, I think the question now has become, is that really as true as it once was? And if so, what do we do about it? And if not, why do we keep relitigating this same issue over and over and over again? And that's the reason I wanted to have the discussion. So let's get to the depth of the idea of what is it to you? What is selling out? Is that even a real thing anymore to you? And if it is, how do you define what that is in your own personal way? Ashley, what about you?
For me, selling out is just more so like betrayal of your own morals, your own principles, and things like so. Whatever you say you stand on, if you go against that, then you will sell out. Some people say selling your soul. It's not limited to just blackness, because like if you're on a sports team, you can sell your teammates out. If you commit a crime with somebody, you can sell your co-conspirators out. So I just say um, if you have a moral code and you go against whatever you say your moral code is, at that point, you sold out.
Okay. All right. AG, what about you, man?
There's the sentiment of selling out, and it comes in layers because there's this, selling out from a total blackness sort of perspective. And I will say that the goalposts move sometimes with that. You really don't exactly know what that entails from one moment to the other. I do agree. Then you have your own personal sort of goalpost that you've created, and that those people around for, and that they trust that you're going to do what is in your best interest, and to a small degree, sort of the best interest of those around you. But I really feel like there is a point to where we have to figure out what does selling out. I don't know that it's as clearly defined, I guess, as it used to be, because Uncle Tom was what it was, and that's what it was, and that's what you grew up on, and you jive turkey, and all of that kind of was all clearly defined to a degree when you was watching Good Times and Sanford and Son and all of them. But sort of now, as we've progressed, as Black people have progressed, as we've assumed even positions of relative power that we have, or even relative fame, and the numbers that have influence on other people sort of increases, I think the goal line kind of shifts and change. I'm not saying that it's for the better or for the worse. I'm just saying, we just don't really have a true definition or a true metric of what that means. I know that's a long answer to say. Some people feel like when you say things like that, it means, oh, so you just need a number. That means you'll sell out, but you won't sell out for this number. You'll sell out for this number. And it's like, yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I think that we still do continue to need, clarification, definition around sort of before we start labeling people.
Okay. All right. What about you, Danielle? Do you have a particular definition? Do you believe that definition is even necessary at this point?
I don't have a particular definition. I would say, anyone who is prioritizing their individual success over the culture, over the community, I would consider a sellout. There are times when, and honestly, that's kind of changed when we see there are folk that voted for Trump and, and clearly voted against their own self-interest, in my opinion. So it's very hard to define, but I think in most cases we know it when we see it. So it's certain, we can't necessarily put a label on it. We can't put a definition to it, but when we see it, when we see someone is prioritizing their own self-interest over and going for something that can harm the Black community, then I would consider them a sellout.
Well, can I also make this point? And I completely agree. The reason why I also say that things change, definitions change, ideology changes, because another thing that you got to remember is that even Martin Luther King was not universally loved and thought of as like he's doing everything right for Black people. There were Black people that thought he was sell out. It was an Uncle Tom, and was this, that, and the third. And I say, secondly, I'll say, and we all sort of on this phone know this, as a business owner, your thought process not necessarily changes as it relates to being a sellout. You just have more to consider upon some decisions than you yourself, or even the 3 or 4 members of your immediate family. You start having to have more kind of conversations with yourself and sort of deliberating a little bit differently as a business owner. And that's tough. That's tough even when you know that your heart tells you need to do one thing, but the greater good of your employees means doing something else. And I think that also plays a part into why I think I personally can't feel like that the goalpost changes a lot, because I know that there are decisions that I have to make every day that are maybe not what I would do personally if I were the only one that I had to worry about.
Yeah. We I would say, I would go as far as to say that to live in America is to negotiate with white supremacy at some point or another. If you get a check from wherever you get a check from, at some point you are having to negotiate with white supremacy, even when it doesn't really seem like it. And so all of us have to decide how much is too much and how much is, how much can we take, how much should we put up with, or how much should we, speak, what should we speak out against, and when we should. And so I can see why on a lot of levels it makes it very difficult to really kind of pin that thing down with a specific definition. Do you think it's still a necessity that we are able to define it and point it out when we see it? Is it something that's necessary when we get, because I recognize some people would say that we've made a certain level of advancement where maybe that's not what the issue is. I've definitely heard people say that before. Do y'all think it's even necessary for us to be able to say, no, that right there is selling out? Or is there a community to sell out at this point?
I think to a degree. Go ahead.
I'll say I think it's important because like AG said, it helps us in making our own personal decisions. There are things, especially as business owners, that we're making the best business decision that we see fit at that time with all the facts that we have, and typically with the bottom line in mind. And so many times we're not considering how the community may be impacted. And it's not that we're intentionally trying to go against the Black community, it's that we are looking out for our own immediate family, looking out for our business growth and these things. So sometimes I think we need to be called out, and we need to see these examples of other people being called out, because it can help us to think twice about the decisions that we're making, and help us to make better decisions in some cases that can be more beneficial to the Black community.
Yeah, and I agree with what Danielle was saying. I was going to say, I feel like it's necessary because you need to know who's advocating for you and who you putting in the room. So, using Snoop because his name came up earlier, like if he's the person that we expect to go in these rooms and advocate for us, and then you see him basically align with the other side. Okay, well, we need to know that because clearly you're not fighting for us like we think you fighting for us. And I think knowing what the goal is as well, because someone who's in corporate America may have a different goal to be able to influence and do certain things. So it's like, okay, yeah, I can't just go cuss out the president of the company because I didn't get my way. If I wanted to, if I want to continue to influence this space, but the rapper can say stuff that the CEO can't, that the marketing coordinator can't, because they have a longer leash to a degree, because it also depends on who they sign to and what they're saying. And so we got to understand that too, in them cases, that's those people's jobs. So they're not just going to show up and blow up their spot for us like we're not going to blow up ours. But I think different people have different roles to execute through, as we fight for our rights and our freedoms here in America. And just because a person not moving like we think they should doesn't necessarily mean they selling out either. So that's, yeah.
100%. I mean, that whole thing with, we talk about the thing with Snoop, or even going back, let's go back to Chrisette Michelle and her performance back. Like, that's another, we tend to make really, really hard and fast opinions about something without sort of taking all of the context. We don't have the context. Honestly, most of the time, we're making decisions on headlines or on snippets or on bits of information. And I get in a lot of trouble at home and abroad. No, I mean, literally, I literally get in a lot. You ever, my wife says, she'll, especially with my oldest son, I walk in the house and she's mad. She wants me to immediately get mad at whatever it is that she's mad at with him. And I say, okay, well, what happened? You should matter to you what happened. Well, yes, it absolutely matters what happened. And we tend, so I take this, I tend to ask a lot of questions before I want to try to say, okay, this is my absolute stance on it. The internet has created an opportunity for the internet blogs, podcasts of just people that just bought a mic and just decided to start talking, give us an opportunity to make decisions without really understanding the totality of it all. And then when you do try to understand the totality of it all, it makes you seem like you're not down with the cause. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. I just want to fully understand something before I fly off the handle about what the answer should be.
Yeah.
And in the case of Snoop, case of Chrisette, whether you understand it or not, I mean, I understand the notion around someone calls you or the president calls you, no matter who that person is, you go and you perform for the president. And I understand. I don't know what Snoop's pockets are like. I don't know. It may not have had anything to do with the president. I don't know, as far as why, or Nelly or whoever, like it may have been paid for by somebody else. I don't know the total, but I feel like all people heard was Nelly Trump, Snoop Trump. No. It was like, well, yeah, but I mean, and as a business owner, I can't afford to do that as a business owner. I can't afford to walk into my business hear one side of a story and then take off in that direction without understanding what happened. And maybe that's the side of things that I get most in trouble for, because I, as a business owner, I just can't afford to do that. I can't hear one side of a story and then take off.
Yeah. I think with Snoop, I think it was because the first time Trump was elected, he had such a strong adverse reaction. So it's like, all right, I mean, cool. Like, I'm like you, let me see the whole clip. I'm not just gonna be like, I hate Jada because of 60-second clip that somebody chopped up or whatever. But I think it's that with Snoop, it's you were so vocal about your hate for this man.
100%.
And now you on stage. Like, what are you standing on, and where are your principles at this point? Like with Nelly, it's like, all right, that's kind of corny to me, but if that's what you want to do with your spare time and how you want to collect your money and what you want to be known for historically, what you want your legacy to be wrapped up in, cool. Like at this point, I don't think Nelly is the driving force that's gonna save the Black community. Never thought he was. So it's like, go for what you know. But for somebody like Snoop, who is a monumental figure, like this man hosted the Olympics in France. You did all of this talk, and now you're not even standing on business to us. And I do know, like, the guy from Death Row got pardoned, so that was probably all wrapped up in the changes and stuff. But for us, and I think because I'm in the entertainment industry, we get hit with these people all day, every day. And whether we like it or not, these people are influencing our lives. They influencing our kids. They influencing how people think of us. And if you just do whatever with your platform, it is detrimental to the community. And I think because Snoop's platform is so big, it's like, nah, that's just lame at this point. Now do what you got to do, get your bag. Your friend got out of jail. I get it from a individualist standpoint, but from a community standpoint, it's like you was kind of corny for talking real loud and then rapping even louder.
So what would you say?
That's true, but what was the issue? I'm gonna say what was the issue, but so if Chrisette was sort of the exact opposite, it was just, oh, she popped up and she, I have friends here in Nashville that also performed at that same inauguration. They performed, meaning they were part of the background band and things like that. I hate the way that we absolutely torched that woman for that, and I haven't understood it as much as I feel like I want to, because I feel like she was just answering a call to go perform at an inauguration, and that's what even she said. But we just don't see it that way. We're not wired to see it that way. We're not wired to separate position from person.
Well, I think my thought on it has always been her situation, and really all of these situations are usually can be layered and complex. So I do think that when you are a public figure and you put yourself in a position to operate in support of a figure who is as divisive as Trump, then you are legitimizing him by your presence. So with that comes some backlash. Here's the thing, though, and here's been my concern, because there's a layer to that when I think about Chrisette Michele, for instance, that some of the backlash she got, I think, was unfair, not because her actions were not worthy of backlash, but because I don't think I think some of the same people who had distaste for what she did would not have the same distaste for a male artist if they had done the same thing. Because we also live in a society that is as racist as it is also misogynist and sexist, and that society deems that women have to live by ethics and men live by expediency. So what happens is, if you're a man and you do these things, well, brother got to make his bread, and he was just doing what he had to do, and I don't agree with it, but that don't mean we should, shut a black man down when he's just trying to feed his family. But when it was Chrisette Michele, she was canceled, and I hear people talk about being canceled all the time, and most of the time people aren't being canceled. They say something, they get away with it. They still get paid. They just had some pushback, and they act like just because they had pushback, they were being canceled. She was canceled.
She got
I
canceled.
was
She
I
got
was
She
at a
was. But
she
I'm
got
just
Ja
like,
Rule. She got Ja Rule
if you
canceled.
make the
Like,
decision,
goodness gracious.
stand on business with your decision that you made,
Mhm.
right? Like,
yeah.
if that's the decision that you made and you don't see nothing wrong with it, and other people do see something wrong with it, they have the right to see something wrong with it. And so stand
Right.
on the decision that you made. Don't backtrack and act like you don't understand why people are upset why you aligned yourself with Trump. Like, let's
Mhm.
not act clueless out here and act like we don't understand why somebody would have a problem with that. And not
No,
only
no,
that,
yeah,
I
that's
feel
true.
like at this point, his first presidency ain't got nothing on even the first 90 days of this second one, right? So,
Yeah.
and he told us and showed us who he was through the whole Biden administration. Like, he been showing us and telling us exactly what was about to happen, right? So we know he the devil now. Like, even if we had some questions, like looking at the first presidency, it doesn't look like anything compared to what's going on right now. And
Yeah.
so to stand with
Agreed.
him in any way at this point is just completely unacceptable, in my opinion. But again, if you're fine with the decision you made, then stand on that, be about it, and be unapologetic about what you decided to do for you and yours. But don't expect us to overlook it. That's my point.
Which,
Don't
which,
don't
which,
expect us to think it's okay just because you thought it was okay.
And real quick, then, because I think Dana said we got like a minute. I was gonna add to the Chrisette layer just from an entertainment standpoint.
Mhm.
Sometimes the cancellation isn't the cancellation that we think it is. So there's multiple layers to that. So most artists that we see are big because of marketing. So the more marketing dollars you have, the bigger you are. So that's what Drake arguing about. Chrisette Michelle is an independent artist who technically was canceled. So let's just say she lost 25% of her fan base. She still wasn't a big enough artist as Snoop to take a 25% hit because she doesn't have the machine behind her. Snoop is in the machine deep. And so him taking a 25% loss is not the same. That's like Elon Musk losing 25% of his money and me losing 25% of mine. No, I got to have mine. We gonna fight. He can still go do whatever he gonna run around and do. So I think that's another layer that goes on to we don't see her not because she's canceled. She just don't have the money to put herself out there like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
that I 100% agree with that, and we've seen that. I've heard people, especially now, when people know that cancellation is because I'll be honest, that was the first person that I really knew that absolutely got canceled in a direct relation to something that had just happened, and it happened that fast. I'm not talking about a Ja Rule. I'm talking about this had nothing. We knew they were beefing. This was, something that happened. He triggered it. And next thing you know, again, completely off the bat, to your point, she didn't have the ability to have that number of people kind of cancel her in that way. And Snoop does have the ability to, if you lose those 25, you may gain 25 more because they realize that, oh, you align with us now. So come on over here with us now. We going because that's what they do as well, that we don't tend to do. We don't tend to have the backing of other people, to your point, Ashley. And I think that's a really, really important point. But I do say that trying to figure out this is what we do. I mean, I hate that we have to be pit against one another to determine this, to even be in a situation where we have to choose between these great artists and cancel them and it 15 20 years of loving them and listening to them comes to this. I really hate that. I understand why, but I really do wish we spent as much time figuring out how to be together than how to cancel.
That raises the question. That raises a question, though. That raises the question: is the onus of togetherness on the community, or is it on the artist that has made the choice? Because one
And I'm talking
could
about
say
in
one could
general.
say yeah, because one could say that we were together. I mean, like we were all together with Chrisette Michelle, and then she decided to not be together anymore. And then we just said, well, okay, if you don't want to be together, then let's not be together. So I hear what you're saying, but I know oftentimes when we have these discussions, there comes a point that people begin to recognize this idea of a rift among Black people that they feel shouldn't be there. And I often wonder, well, who is responsible for the rift? It's because I know oftentimes when we have this discussion, it seems as if we frame the audience to have a responsibility to the entertainer that we don't apply to the entertainer. We don't apply that same responsibility to the entertainer.
Well,
Who do y'all think has the responsibility, the artist or the entertainer?
I don't think we know from an audience perspective. We don't know I'm not saying anybody could have turned down 10 times opportunity, or they could have done a whole bunch of other things in the community. They could be really a great person. We don't know all these things. We take one thing and then that becomes sort of their narrative. And to y'all's point, I mean, again, their legacy is what it is at this point. At least it's a part of it. I'm not going to make it sound like that one thing is their legacy. It becomes a part of their legacy. And now really it remains to be seen sort of how, Nelly may rebound, or how Snoop may rebound, or Chrisette may rebound. We'll see. But I don't necessarily say, I don't know. It's just this is a weird time that we are in, where things change so swiftly and opinions change so swiftly. And the opinion of so many people now begin to create and formulate the opinions of everyone else, and it's just an interesting time to be alive.
I think that everybody has a number. I think that everybody has a number that they selling out for. I got a number. I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. And so and you better know, if that number is hit and I decide I'm going over here with Trump or whatever, taking whatever opportunity, that I'm not gonna care. I'm not gonna need the community for anything else going forward. So that's why I say stand on that decision that you made, right? Because Chrisette, that number should have been enough for her to never have to do another show again and not worried about being canceled. But if you still have to worry about the community and them supporting you, then there's a problem. There's a gap there. But I'm like, if my number is hit, you're not gonna have to ever hear from me again. I'm not gonna ever have to reach out to the community. I'm not gonna have to ever invite them to buy a ticket to nothing ever again for the rest of my life. And I'm gonna just disappear
or at
off
least you'll say this number was high enough to where even when I do stick my head back out, I don't care what you think. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't care what nobody think. Somebody hits you with the 10 billion, right? Like, somebody comes and is like, okay, man, I got 10 billion for you. Like, and you're going to be like, well, no, because the black community, let's be real. Like, let's just be real.
Right.
I'm going to say most of us have a number. Again, I don't know what the number is, but I'll know it when I see it. And I'm going to know that I ain't gonna never have to worry about nothing ever again, and nobody's gonna have to support me in any other way.
Y'all remember that lady during the first Trump administration? I think it was like a college student, and she like pretended to be a Trump supporter and had all these people supporting her like on a GoFundMe or something. Yeah. But she was just a regular black girl just scamming and scheming, scheming the Trump supporters, and got her college paid for, got to move out of state, got her car paid off. I mean, if Chrisette was going that route, I can understand.
I think the burden of responsibility relies on both parties. Mm-hmm. It's the community and the artist. I agree with y'all. If the artist decides to break away from the community, you need to stand on that, because you made that choice to be an individualist at that point. But you can't get mad when we don't have your back, because that's the thing with the community. And I see it, I call it the reverse crossover. Somebody like R. Kelly still has a fan base because black people held him down. Once you decide you no longer part of the community and you take that money and you go over there and they turn their back on you, you do not get the luxury to come back and have the community rock with you. But I also think, again, what's your mission? Because if Snoop would have went in there and said, you know what, I'm a rap for Trump, I'm gonna get these 10 million and then I'm gonna invest it in the community, I'm gonna invest it in this, it wouldn't be that like flip-flop corny to me. But I'm a person that's real strong on principle. No, if I say this ain't it, that's not it, point blank, period. God gonna have to provide something else, because it's not how we rocking. So I do think, like, from a community standpoint, if we ever want to heal and progress and move forward, it's on the community to hold artists accountable, which, like, that's why my whole brand is Talented 10th. I'm helping you develop as an artist to be a representation for our community and give back to our community in a certain way. Because if you blow up your community, they are the ones that's gonna put the money in your pocket. They are the ones that's gonna buy your merch. They are the ones that's gonna stream your music. When it's time for cancellation, they are the ones that's gonna have your back. If you want to be individualistic, again, you could be out there like Lizzo. Lizzo, she started on the pop side. So to me, by the time Black people heard about her, she was doing stuff that we didn't necessarily felt like was for the greater whole of the community. And I would say the average Black person probably does not listen, stream Lizzo's music. And that's not, I think she's incredibly talented.
Mhm.
That's just what I see. It's her biggest support system are they're white women. They're not Black women. They're not the Black community. It's white women. And so, you know, when she went through her stuff, we just weren't the ones that had her back, because it's like, you kind of been out here acting a fool, period. So we don't want that on our name. And I'm gonna say she never even really betrayed the community. She just didn't move like the community.
That's what I was about to say, is that, like, that's a great point too. And you can go down, you can talk about Shabuzi, you can talk about again Lizzo, you can talk about, I mean, hell, go back, what was there's been several, I guess I'm saying, really big Black artists that started off just in another genre. That does the community feel an obligation to protect them as much if they have not really done the community wrong, but they just didn't start out sort of in this space, but they're still seeing a level of success. Do they still not, should they still not be protected? So going back to your point, I do agree with you, Ashley, that it is honest sort of on both sides. I think even if you start off, which is maybe a good challenge for artists, that if they start out, especially Black artists, if they start off in another genre, you still have to find a way to connect sort of with Black folks. And I don't even want to shrink that to mean that Black folks don't listen to pop, or Black folks don't listen to country, or Black folks don't listen to those other areas. But I don't have an answer to you for what those artists do to make sure they have a real strong foothold in the Black community and are a part of sort of what we're dealing with. I don't know the answer.
I think it's Black media. Because we connect with people based on their story and getting it out the mud. So
yeah,
it's cool, Shabuzi, what he doing, but like we saw Beyonce get it out the mud, like since she was like 15, 16. Some people when she was 9. Him being, I'm gonna just say 30 something, because I don't know how old he is. It's kind of like he just kind of pop up some out of nowhere, and he's a country star. We didn't see you get it out the mud. We don't know much about you, so we root for you, and we definitely will protect you if we feel like the man is coming sideways. But it's kind of like the new kid at a school. We don't really know you yet, so
yeah,
we not sitting at your table. We not doing all of this, and it's nothing against you. It's just we're not familiar with you, and without him or anyone else being in Black spaces and Black media enough to talk to us, it's going to be very hard for somebody like that to connect with the community, because they're not speaking to the community.
Yeah, we we have
like, do they center Blackness, and is that their approach, it, and even if we talk about Black businesses, like every Black business is not looking to attract Black customers, right? Like every Black, just because you're a Black business owner doesn't mean that Black people have to be your customer base. However, if you are okay with your customer base not being Black, don't expect Black people to be the ones to rescue you. Like, I think that's the issue that we see many times, is that, and I want to make it very clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Black people not being your customer. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. With Black people not being your target market for your business, and you're missing out on money if you're not going beyond Black people as a business owner in most cases. However, you can't come to us to rescue you. Like, it's like you're expecting the Black community to rescue you. No, your customers need to rescue you. Whoever those folks are, they need to stand behind you when stuff hits the fan. And so that's the issue, even with the artists. Like, if you're not really centering Blackness, if your story is not about being Black, if you, like you said, we don't hear about how you got it out the mud, then we don't really connect with you like that. So when something does go wrong, when Shabuzi is snubbed or whatever, we like, well, good luck. I hope everything works out for him, like, but we're not gonna necessarily come to his rescue.
Yeah, and I think and to be, I think it's important to point out that the reason that we operate in that way is because we've lived in a culture that for so long has treated our existence like a piece of clothing to be put on and taken off. We've been commodified in so many different ways that we have to guard against that. We have to guard in order just for our own safety, socially and otherwise. We've always had to guard against the idea that there are people who will show up and you're like, well, I don't know where he's from. I don't know him like that. And it's not that I want to be standoffish against him, but I do have to protect myself and I do have to protect my people, because this person, just because they came in looking like me, doesn't mean that they are one of us. And sometimes people will use blackness as a means of getting what they want, and then they will disrobe from that very blackness when it's no longer convenient for them and do something else. We've seen our support be commodified in a lot of different ways that in the long run, if you look at, I always think about the WB and CW and whatever else that they were called at one time or another, and how they put all those black shows out front, and as soon as they got the capital and the means to go further, they removed all of those shows, regardless of whether they were successful or not. For them, it wasn't even a matter of the fact that those shows were still being watched, that they still had good ratings. They were like, just being associated with blackness is no longer good for us. And so we're going to get rid of those shows. And that happens a lot for black people, is that even among some black, with black people. So that whole idea is something that we have to be guarded against. It's not something that other communities have to face or even think about.
But even to that kind of along those that line, we some of this is a conditioning of hundreds of years of being very cautious about everybody and everything. We it's kind of people are sometimes I feel like with us, people are innately bad until we show you that we're good, or we have ulterior motives before we show you that we're genuine. You have to prove to me that you don't have, my harm, that you're not initially trying to harm me before I say, okay, well, maybe this is it. Again, because for a lot of the points that are made, and again, I realize that I'm being a contrarian in my old age. I get it, because I'm at that age where I can start doing that now. It's just like, I when I talk about moving the goalposts, and when I'm talking, because your goalpost and someone else's goalpost may be completely different. The goalposts in general may change up, but we also, and again, I don't tend to know all the movements of Lizzo, all the movements of Shabuzi, all the movements of the other artists that have kind of popped up and have not necessarily made it out the mud. But I feel like we tend to want to make them show us that they're black and that they're for us just because you're in another genre of music. We've gotten to the point to where we have to prove, just because you're not in this genre, just because you're not in hip hop or R&B, if you do something else, then you can't be as black as the folks that are in hip hop and R&B, because this is our default music genre. And it's like, so you need to go overboard to show us that you are really still down, is when you just singing some different songs. It ain't got nothing to do with whether I'm down with you anymore or not. So why then should my support, why should you not come to the rescue of me if someone is attacking me just because I sell country? And to your point, but you don't see as much about me on Media Takeout. You don't see as much about me on the blog sites, on World Star Hip Hop. But I'm just as black as you. My mama just went. We came from the mud. We came from the mud of Bahia, Mississippi. It wasn't the mud of Chicago or New York. But so that sort of is my point, is that we tend to make and take a lot of things for granted, not giving people the opportunity to sort of be the individual that they are, lumping us all together, and then we figure out a way to divide us. We, like that right there shows we figure out ways to divide us. We just come up with new ingenious ways that we have to keep.
I don't think it's us though, AG. I'm gonna say from an artistic level, from a creative level, that's them up there, because like I don't necessarily think for black, and maybe back in the day, but now that we've kind of had this black renaissance come around in the last 10 years or so, 5 years or so, like a black person doing country, we gonna rock with that. We rock with black people who win. If you black and you win, we on your team. So if you can ski, we all gonna buy a team ski black man.
Right.
When PK Subban was in Nashville on the hockey team, everybody turned into a hockey fan because that black man was there. So we will go and venture into these new things with you. I think it's if we see you with them all the time, you're no longer safe because it's like, where are your black people to kind of anchor you and pull you back and let you know, like, don't go too far off that cliff, because once you go on the other side, it's a little different over there. And that's not to say that you got to do everything with us. You can't talk to them.
Yeah.
But if I never see you with black people, I am not going to trust you. And you could be the kindest person in the world. I am not going to trust you if I never see you with black people. So I think some of it is that when those type of artists kind of get into something, what's that boy named Daniel Caesar, and he was like, he let that white girl say the N-word and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you got a song with Brandy, but nigga, no, like
no, right. No, that was a violation. Yeah, that was a violation.
So I think we have clear, like, okay, you around all of these white people and you letting them disrespect us. I think Chris Rock is another. It's like, you let that white man sit there and call you nigga on video or say the word, and you laughing like, yeah, I let my white friends say it all the time. We start being like, I don't know about that, because your association with them is giving Kanye in the Black Klansman hood because of these things that are going on. But I think on another level, that's what the whole They Not Like Us, the Drake versus Kendrick beef was about. Drake is technically a black man. Based on the one drop rule, he is a black man. But in his interviews, he says, I'm a Jewish man, a Jewish kid from Toronto doing hip hop. So now you have aligned yourself with the Jewish community. Cool, because them your people too. But you didn't say I'm an Afro-Jewish man. You said I'm a Jewish man. But every time we see you, you got on the Afro part of you, and then the way you do it is you're degrading the women. Now you making murder music and you just grifting from genre to genre to genre, but you don't really identify with us or like with us. No, you not like us, because that's not how we treat our women, which I think needs to be a part of it. Kendrick setting a bar. We don't act like that.
Yeah, so, I wanna let me jump in just a second, because
yes,
I do. Yeah, I will say this. I agree. I think that AG's original assertion is something that really operates in reverse more than it does. Like I don't have a problem with the idea of people being different, or at least what we consider different from what we consider characteristically black. And I don't think most of the time we have that much of an issue with that. I think we are probably too accepting of people who say and do harmful things to black people as characteristically black, and that we give them way too much of a pass. I don't like, and I know people, and I think we think it's being divisive to call out the fact that so many of us can say whatever we want to say about black women and they're still cool as long as they just fit some of the other criteria. Like I don't think, like, for us to say, for instance, for us to have to debate whether or not Snoop is for us when Snoop has made an entire career off of what he has had to say about black women. It's
correct.
Something to be
correct.
Discussed.
No, that's 100. That's 100% correct. I don't disagree with you that at all. It's so funny. I was sitting here, and again, you just thinking about. I love this conversation because I really haven't had it to this degree. Even though I posted things online, and it's like I really feel like our opinions that we have, that we broadcast out to people, aren't really debated and really thought completely through a lot of the times. You ever go to a post and you see something happen on the screen, and then you go to the comments before you really decided how you feel about the video, and then based on the comments, then you develop your opinion on things. Like that's sort of how I feel some things happen without having, and everybody's basing their opinion just on what they're seeing on the screen. They have no idea of context or anything. And it's I feel like that's what's happening. And to your point, why is it? I'm gonna say it. Why is it now that the problem has been that Snoop aligned with Trump when Snoop been calling your sister, your auntie, your cousin, your mama a dirty B dog, ate a hole, and all that for the last 20 years, and that was cool. But when he decided to align himself with this dude, now all of a sudden I need to be alarmed about it. Well, what was the issue? Like, so is the issue that he did something with the white dude, or that he said something that he shouldn't have? Because he's been saying something he shouldn't have for 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's the alignment with the white dude because, like you said,
Bottom line.
like he's been doing it, he's been saying it, and like lately, I've been watching like the war on Chirac. Like I didn't really pay attention to it when it happened, so I've been kind of catching up on the background and the history, and it's just kids killing kids, but it's grown people listening to the music of the kids talking about who they killed, and it's like as long as it's a fire baseline under it, and I'm guilty of it. Like if I like a song, I like a song. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like I just only listen to the greatest of hip hop.
I grew up on 666 Mafia. Come on now.
Me too. So Lil Chat pop up in my playlist quite a bit. So I just want to be clear. I don't want to be a hypocrite, but I think that's it. Like we let it slide on wax because it's entertainment, and then when it started, the entertainer, you realize they are who they say they are. It's like, oh no, he a serial killer in real life, and it's like the man said he was a serial killer in all his music. Like what? So yeah.
So that raises a couple of questions, and we're going to take a really quick break, and it raises two questions. One, are we, because entertainers have an outsized impact in our communities and in America, because with black, if you look at other genres or other areas of business, you will find more black people in sports, you will find more black people in entertainment, and they will have more impact and influence than they do in a lot of other different fields. So it raises the question, should we place as much responsibility on their shoulders as we do? Do we give them too much power? And also, do we have a responsibility that we're neglecting by the entertainment that we accept? That's what we're going to talk about a little bit when we come back.
This is big, fella. Don't get mad, get money. And that's the scenario.
Hey, this is Danielle McGee from Black Business Boom, reminding you to shop black and save, and that's the scenario.
Okay, we're still here discussing selling out on the scenario. We've got A.G. Granderson, Ashley Autumn, and Danielle McGee Gibson. So we've been talking for quite a bit. We started digging into the whole idea of selling out and what it meant, and immediately a good deal of that conversation went into entertainment. Now, rightfully so, that as I mentioned before, we have an outsized impact. Our entertainment, black entertainment, and black entertainers have shaped popular culture across the world. We move culture, and from the area of entertainment, we've done it a lot. But it raises the question, are we putting too much responsibility on the shoulders of our entertainers, where some of that responsibility needs to go elsewhere? Maybe it needs to go to our communities, us as consumers, and what we accept and what we allow, or do we need to be focusing on other black figures when it comes to their responsibility to us as a people? What are your thoughts on that?
Everybody can get it. Everybody need to do better. The black church, the entertainers, the schools, the politicians, the business people, everybody. I don't think anybody's exempt. I don't think the entertainers have enough responsibility, but I also don't think everybody else pulling their weight either. We can't just expect them to do it. But if you're gonna be the liaisons, if you're gonna be the people who go around the world and represent our community, you need to act like it. You need to respect our women like it. You need to respect each other like it. But again, the pastors, the teachers, the principals, everybody need to really get on it. If we really talking about community. Now, if we just want to feel good about talking about community, then we can keep doing what we're doing.
Got to figure out
I agree. I think also again, holding people accountable. If no one's there to hold them accountable, then they're going to keep on doing what they have been doing. And just to the influence that these people have on us, even as adults, but especially on the children, then they absolutely should be held accountable. As Ashley mentioned, out here talking about stealing and killing and all type of foolishness. And this is what we're listening to every day, and this is what becomes a part of the actions that we take. We want to act like it doesn't have an impact on how we think and feel and move, but it absolutely does. And again, if 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds can be impacted, imagine what it's doing to a 6-year-old hearing that music. And so, but it's up to us to hold these folks accountable, not just when they do something like align with Trump, but when they do something that's detrimental to our community overall.
I think that I think there's also a lack of leadership right now that we are experiencing something that I felt like, for 8 years we rocked with Obama and sort of made him the de facto sort of, leader. We were willing to sort of, hear what he had to say, and for the most part, kind of fall in line to whatever degree our, that we could sort of behind it. I feel like we saw progress happening even through, George W. Bush and going into, Obama, and then we just hit this brick wall of Donald Trump. And from the first term, great point that you have made, from the first term of Trump through, Biden, and then now this second term, we're watching this regression of America, of who we are, the devaluing of Black people on a scale that we hadn't seen in decades and decades and decades. And then along that time, another thing that we did not do is we really didn't shore things up the way that we needed to shore it up to make sure that we weren't doing our part in the regression. It's like, so the things that we were doing to ourselves that didn't look great and that didn't feel great, the music that we were making and some of the moves that we were making while the America was progressing, we kind of still got some progress. But now, if you add the bull crap that we doing with the bull crap that the administration is doing, with the bull crap of the outside noise, with the additional access to all of this information, and everybody's making an opinion on everything right now, it just has created this goddamn, I don't know what to call it. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances where we have to deliberately pull ourselves out of this. It's not going to happen with a bunch of happenstance moves that happen. No, someone's kind of got to be able to sit us down and say, look, guys, here's where we are. This is what we're doing. And it ain't Charleston White, even though some of the stuff, when Charleston get on and roll, I'd be like, it's right about that. But you don't want to listen to everything Charleston says. But we have to deliberately sort of come up with what's the plan, what's that state of Black America, and who's gathering everybody together to say this is what we need to do to sort of create that charge. Because if not, we're going to continue this cycle of degradation that a lot of the onus of this belongs to us. It's not even outside forces that's putting us in this situation. We're doing this to ourselves.
That's real talk, AG.
Yeah, I think it's two things. One, we got a real Black man problem, and I see it within the Democratic Party. And no disrespect to John Legend, but it's like, if you're trying to rally Black men, John Legend is not necessarily the guy that gives, like, I don't want to say rough and tumble, but he's just not the guy that our community looks as the protector, as the leader. But that's kind of like the Black man that we see. And I don't want to say like soft or docile, because I don't know John Legend. He might haul off and whoop all our ass. But I still think it's a very docile Black man that the Democratic Party pulls out. And the second part to that is, I don't think that we'll be able to have that leadership if it's under white anything. So like Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, fell apart when they started doing business with the white man. Like, and it's not that we can't do business with white people, but when you start involving other people's money into things, they now have a say so. So how can you liberate your people with money from somebody who can come in and say, well, don't say it like that, or don't do it like that, or you should take more clothes off when you say it, or the last person that did it said bitch 15 times in a song. So if you say it 16 times, then you'll go viral. If you do this, like, no, we never gonna be liberated. And I think even when people get mad at a Beyonce or a Jay-Z, it's like everything they have tied up is with the powers that be, whether it's a deal with Tiffany's. Good, again, I don't have no beef with it because I do feel like they give back to the community in ways to try to help liberate us. But Beyonce can't just say whatever and then she lose all her money and then she back in Houston in the hood and then we all gonna be looking at her like, okay,
Well,
you stupid for doing
But
it.
that's when that happens. We actually sometime with our backwards thinking, like, you back home now. All right, we good. All right, we all broke
well,
together. So
okay,
let's figure out how to
but
make it out the mud. It's like I was just
let's
Absolutely. It's like
okay,
we gotta be broke to be black. It's wild.
let's be reasonable though. When we talk about some of the people that we're talking about taking certain stands, and we talk about them losing money, are we really talking about them being back in the hood? If you
They're not gonna be
if
back
you
in the
are a
hood. No.
billionaire, and then people decide there are certain people who were also instrumental in helping you making you a billionaire, decide they no longer want to be in the Beyonce business or in the whoever business, does that mean that you're not going to get to be as big of a billionaire anymore, or does it mean you're going to be back in the hood? Because the thing is, a lot of times when we have these discussions, especially when we're talking about entertainers, for some reason we have this idea that we owe them the opportunity to be billionaires. And I don't know if we owe them the opportunity to be billionaires as much as we owe them the support of just saying, well, as long as you're with us, we're with you. And those are two different things. Because when people talk about Kanye and they talking about, well, they're going to take his business from him and he won't be able to sell Adidas anymore, it's like, okay, well, that's a shame. But I don't know if I owe him it's a rare situation if someone gets the opportunity to own their own shoe company and sell billions of dollars worth of shoes, and that's wonderful if you can do it. But I don't know if we as a community owe people the opportunity to be billionaires. And if they don't get to be billionaires anymore, I don't know if that's necessarily a loss, and if it should be counted as a loss.
I don't think we owe it to them, but in some cases, I feel like they work to put themselves in that position, because if they didn't, everybody would be one, or at least every entertainer who made some money. Like Beyonce was not a Nepo baby. She wasn't from the hood either. I also think everybody hood looked different. So, Beyonce hood at this point might just be having to live where I live, and I don't live in the hood, but I don't live where Beyonce live either. So I think it's some of that, but like building a brand and having people engage with your brand, I don't think that's something we give them. It takes a team, it takes work to be able to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that because it is a job, and if we look at entertainment as a job, like, okay, I have to show up here, or let's just take a tour. I have to do these 12 dates on this tour to make X amount of money. I have to pay these people, make sure they get paid this, that, and the third. That's a job and it's a lot of work. People only see like the glitz and the glamour part, or the part that they see once the camera edits everything. So I think it's that, knowing like, okay, well, if let's take it to just back to Chrisette Michelle, and let's say she's on a regular label and they say, okay, well, you need to go perform for Trump. That's her job. So she probably gonna do it if she needs, okay, I got kids, I got to pay bills. So I think some of it is that without true independence, you're always going to depend on a corporation that is owned by someone who doesn't look like us, unless that is a black owned corporation.
And that's my thing.
And with all the facts, we're going to always tend to, we're going to leave our feelings a lot of times on what everybody else says. And everybody else is got the same information that you got and forming an opinion. about, like you said, it's just, and I'll give you one other thing. When we talk about these billionaires, the one person that doesn't come into the conversation as much, but she's as much of a billionaire as everybody else, is Rihanna. Like, people, you talking about coming out the mud, she did too. I just think Rihanna, everybody gives Rihanna sort of a collective pass. Not that she doesn't deserve it, just because she stood up for Black folks, for a long time. Mm-hmm. And people are genuinely happy now that Auntie kind of got her man and her, I guess 2.5 kids or whatever it is now. But to your point, if she lost it all, she would never be as broke as I am right now. And I'm not saying like I'm broke, but I'm saying she will never have what my account has in it. If she did, she would think she was broke. But we're going to continue to support her, but because we felt like she's going to bat for us a lot, and we can, in verifiable ways, which is the other side of this, is that we tend to make these opinions and these decisions not knowing or understanding what other people have been doing that you just don't know about. And that's sort of the unfortunate side of it too. And the fact that we pit ourselves against each other for a number of reasons. And the goalpost gets moved, for a number of reasons. And that's sad too.
So, I believe that we are all negotiating that. Everyone's negotiating. Everybody has a job. Everybody has someone they have to answer to. And in America, there comes a point that you will have to choose between what is too much for me and what is enough. I work a job at my day job. I work a job where I am over a team of people. And one of the people on my team got hurt on the job a couple of months ago. He was a white guy. And when he got hurt on that job, he called me and he said, I got hurt. X, Y, and Z has happened. And I know I was supposed to call you so we can figure out what to do next. So I went to him so that we could get him somewhere to get looked at and to get the medical attention he needed. In the midst of him doing that, he's apologizing to me for getting hurt in a situation that was not his fault, because he's thinking about the corporation first, because that's what we're conditioned to do, is think about the corporation first. And I'm explaining to him, your only concern right now is to look after your own best interest first. Make sure that you follow these particular procedures to do what you need to do to look after your health and take care of your family first. And I explained this to him clearly. And then he immediately starts back apologizing again and talking about how he's going to try to make sure that everybody at this workplace knows that he's a good guy and he didn't mean to get. And I immediately shut my mouth after that, because I knew that this was not somebody who had the mindset to think about looking after what was important first. He was looking after the corporation to his own detriment. And the reason I point that out is that I had to shut up, because I could keep talking and keep explaining why these people don't care nothing about you. You need to be looking out for you. But at some point, I have to look out for myself. And that means that, because we can keep having this conversation until I convince you, and then you at some point say, well, Van said, and now I've got to defend my own self in my own job. And so that was a choice I made. And that is the calculus that is happening at all of our jobs, at all of these workplaces. At some point or another, a lot of times, is that we have to calculate how much do we stand for what is just, and how much do we stand for making sure that we still got a job.
I think I was just gonna say, I think that's generational as well. Like Gen Z, Gen Alpha ain't working yet. Even younger millennials, some older millennials, probably depending on your level of wokeness, like you'll push back a little bit more at work. So we see all the articles that's like, Gen Z will quit on you in a minute. And it's like, yeah, but that kind of makes sense, because like, what did you really say to this person? Because I know what you done said to me or asked me to do or required me to do. And for them to be like, nah, you know what? I will go at home and dance on TikTok for 16 hours to make money before I let you disrespect me or treat me any kind of way. That's a generational thing. Because like I even think of my parents, like my dad is super traditional. Like I want you to have this kind of job and retire and get your 401k and don't rock the boat and don't say this and don't do that. And it's like, first of all, if they big tripping, I'm gonna say something. If they medium tripping, a little tripping, I might let it slide, because it's like, all right, is this worth losing my job today? So I do see that being a generational thing, where it's like, what are we sacrificing? What are we compromising to go along with the status quo? And is the status quo even something we should be continue to go along with? Because we, the people, are the ones that make the change. So we can't say we want something different. And Trump's different is not the different that I wanted, but I think he might usher in the different that I want, because somebody gonna have to rebuild it after he get done tearing it up. But yeah, I just think it's generational.
Yeah, and then let's keep in mind that a lot of these people aren't going. They aren't being quiet to go along with the status quo. They're trying to make sure that they can feed their families. That's an entirely different thing.
Yeah, and I think that's, even as business owners, we struggle with some of those decisions as well. Like I said, with identifying who is our target market. You know, are we marketing to white folks, and then our community feels like we want white folks in the establishment? I saw this happen in Nashville a few years ago, where there was an establishment that was kind of putting white people on their marketing, and then people were mad, and I'm like, I mean, he's just trying to make his money and make this a welcoming environment for all, so that he can maximize his revenue. I get it from a business standpoint. Even in my own business, I was told 6 years ago, you know, you should just call it Boom. You shouldn't call it Black Business Boom. You should call it Boom, because then, you know, white people will feel better about it. And I'll tell you, even now, with all that's going on, as we really transition most of our work to our nonprofit, we say we serve Black business owners. However, it's risky right now, right? The Fearless Fund got sued in September 2023. So this is before Trump was in office. They got sued for giving grants to Black women. So that's when I start thinking, oh, okay, let me start. So we start saying, okay, we serve minority entrepreneurs. Now it's like, okay, we serve underserved entrepreneurs, right? I'm doing what I got to do to keep the doors open on the organization. Now I could stand on Black, right? I could just be like, no, we serving Black people, and now I risk all of my funding, and I can't serve nobody, right? And so this is a business decision that I had to make that hurt me, you know. But at the same time, I'm gonna still make sure there's only Black folks in my marketing. Like, we know who we marketing to, we know who our audience is, and who's in our network. But I can't write a grant and say I'm supporting Black-owned businesses, knowing that I will likely not get that federal grant if I say that, right? Like, so it comes a point where it's choosing, are you going to be foolish, right? It would just be foolish of me to decide I'm standing on, I serve Black people, and now I don't have an organization at all because I decided to stand on that one thing. When I continue to do this work, I just can't necessarily say that specific word. And so again, and I would definitely not consider myself a sellout, because I've decided we're going to say we serve underserved entrepreneurs instead of saying Black. I'm doing what I have to do to keep this organization going, to not only feed my family, but to keep supporting all the business owners that we support through the organization.
So I want to, I love that example, because that goes, and I know I keep going back to this, but we're talking about selling out. And I think that she's an example of sort of this mentality, is that if, let's say, Chrisette, right after that announcement, had come out and said, look, y'all, I was broke. I'm about to get kicked out of my house. I have, you know, this is the only thing that I do for a living. And I had to take that check because it was just, you know, because I was literally about to be evicted out of my house. And now I could go do this GoFundMe right quick. Let's see how many, you know, are y'all going to, can I raise through y'all what it's going to take to get this? Would that have made it better? I'm not saying that's the answer, but I'm saying, would that have made it better? The answer to probably is no. It would not have made it better.
I don't know. I can't say that it would
have. Might have. Communication. I think communication makes a difference.
we're in conversation with one another. This is all of this is about conversation with one another. That's the whole thing. People say, well, we don't know when you talk about moving the goalposts and the goalposts are moving, the goalposts keep moving because we are in a constant fluid conversation that we've been in for hundreds of years, and we have to be in conversation with one another. If we can't have that conversation with one another, then we can't have community.
We've been broke for 200 years, 300 years. I'm saying like needing to go to a job that you don't like because you need the money has been something we've been doing for the whole time we've been here. And that's life. That's really not going to change.
Not the whole time. Not the whole time. A lot of time we were under the threat of death. And the reason I'm saying that because that informs the entire conversation. The threat of death that we had to face for several years informs the conversation. The exploitation that we've had informs the conversation. None of this is out in a vacuum. So all of it has to be part of the conversation. But go ahead.
No, 100%. So now my question though going back to the initial question was, does that what I just said, would that frame it differently enough to where people would say, oh shit, I get it. Okay, then carry on with your business. Or did she make the decision? Because again, I've met her, I've talked with her about the whole nine. I never brought it to this degree because I didn't want to, be intrusive to a degree. But it's like, do you think that she fell on her sword and didn't say, I'm broke and I need this money, just to keep up the image of being an artist and the artist that she is? And then that was the miscalculation that happened here, that people would not just you couldn't appeal to our sensibility of, hey, I gotta go to a job that I don't like, to do a job that to get this money to bring home, just like you do. I am the same as you.
All we can do is make assumptions if you don't know, right? Like, so if she's not telling us this is why, half of us are assuming she's a sellout and she just wanted the money. The other half are maybe giving her the benefit of the doubt and saying she must have been on hard times for her to do it, and I'm not going to charge it to her because of that. But all we can do is make an assumption. If she would have communicated that, I'm certain that there would have been, I know I would have felt differently about it had she communicated, I had to do this for my family, y'all. I'm sorry I had to make this decision, but it was a rough time. My career was in the toilet, whatever it might have been. But I mean, we know in every relationship in life, communication is key. And so when you don't communicate, you leave us to come up with whatever assumptions most of us are going to assume the worst.
Yeah, and she did give us an excuse or a reason. I'm not going to say an excuse. And it was, she felt like God wanted her to do it to bring people together. I think Black people just tired of hearing it. Why we always got to extend our olive branch and try to make nice with people? Like, this man said he don't like us. And I'm the type of person, if you don't want me there, yes, put your no blacks allowed sign on your restaurant so I can keep going to the one that want me there. I don't want to be up in there in the first place, and I'm not finna fight to go eat your unseasoned chicken either. So great. So I think some of that is like you just did it to be a good Christian, which there's nothing wrong with, but it's like, to what end?
That ain't enough.
To what end do we keep doing this? And then, yes, I think she probably, let's just say she lost 25% of her fan base, she might have would have lost only 10 if she said, y'all, I did it for the money. Soulja Boy said he did it for the money. He ain't as big as Snoop or Nelly, so it didn't hit the media for him like that. But he was like, man, I ain't gonna lie. At first, they called and I was like, nah. He's like, but then I thought about it. I needed that bag. And he was like, so I was like, F it. I wasn't going to get the bag. So, and I was like, you know what? I go get mine every morning too. So here we are.
I guess what I'm saying is that's the natural, the reason why I'm saying that I feel like we figure out additional ways is because at the end of the day, we know that. We all know that they were going to get that bag. They were going to take them. We kind of said in the very beginning, is like, that's all it was, a money grab. Like that was somebody said, come and play this room. Here's 200,000. And again, I know one of them was like a crypto event. So, they had big money. It wasn't a Trump event. One of them was a It was a crypto. They were at a crypto conference. Trump was going to be at that conference. The crypto company paid one of them, Snoop or Nelly, one of the two, and it was some large, ridiculous amount of money to come. I don't know that they even thought of it along those lines. They were like, "This is a gig."
Most people don't see entertainers as workers. It's a job of luxury. So like that's something that I run into. It's like if you live the lifestyle, like if you fake it to make it, then if people are like, "Oh, that's fun. You sit in the club all day," and it's like, "No, I shot a music video of a club scene that had 16 different takes, and we stopped. And yes, there might have been alcohol there, but we were there 12 hours working. This was not just bottle popping like you go to the lounge and do." I don't think the reality for most people is celebrities go to work and get a job. They just think there's an endless amount of money, and it's
that's
like,
what I'm trying to say.
These people got to
sitting around with 15 offers to do $2 million shows all the time, and that there's no way that you could possibly need this money. You do this job because you want to do this job, and you have so much money that you can just do entertainment all day. You see, that's kind of the thought process. It's like, I don't think people can wrap their minds around, just like there was a caterer, just like there were some ushers at the front door, just like there was some, the sound guy, just like the guy that built the stage. They were all there just doing a job. That was the thing that they got called to do that day. He got called to build the stage.
That is true.
They got called to cook the food in the kitchen. So does everybody supposed to say no to this because they know Trump is going to be there?
No, wait a minute. Let's add one layer to that though. We are in conversation. That's the thing. We are always in these conversations. And it's one thing to equate those things to being workers. It's another thing that they don't equate those things to being workers as long as it benefits them. Entertainers don't equate themselves to being workers as long as it benefits them. If they find themselves in a bind where people have decided to turn against them, then they will equate themselves to being workers.
Right. Because I need for you to not think of me as a worker, because I need you to have this elevated sense of who I am. So I spend all these times wearing all these diamonds and jewelry to show you that I have excess of money.
Yeah,
so and that's what you can't possibly think I need this gig. You don't know, just like Ocho Cinco, that all these jewels is damn fake. You don't know that I've been living, at my cousin's house for the last couple of years because I ain't really had that, because I wear all this stuff. And to your point, Ashley, I'm in these videos where I got all these girls and all this liquor and all this. So you don't think of me.
So what I'm saying is,
you did it to yourself.
So what I'm saying is, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You have to decide.
But that's the way we need. Black folks need people elevated. We need our preachers to be up here. We need our pimps to be up here. We need our celebrities to be up here. We need our athletes to be up here. Everybody's got to look this part like they're at the top of the financial food chain in order for them to be. When's the last poor leader? When's the last time we followed a leader that you truly knew just didn't have it like that?
But I think that's the fault of the black middle class. Like the black poor people will follow they poor. They will follow, and not that Nipsey Hussle was poor, but they will follow their people. We are the ones as middle class that put all these unrealistic expectations. You need to be a PhD. I graduated magna cum laude from.
I agree to an extent. But I also know, just like when you were talking about John Legend, I also know that there are a whole lot of black men who will not follow somebody who knows what they are doing, who is speaking clearly, thoughtfully, and directly about what needs to happen if that person does not fit a certain paradigm. And that paradigm doesn't have to legitimate them in any other kind of way. That you can be loud, you can be forceful, and you can be completely wrong. And there's an entire segment of black society, and they are not all middle class, that will follow you just because you are loud and you are forceful.
That's true.
So that's a difficult. So I get what you're saying, but that is a difficult thing that we're wrestling with. Okay, when we're looking for our responsibility as a community to the people that we would have speak on our behalf. Okay, so
and I'll make it one more point. I feel like I feel like when so Martin Luther King Jr., you know, I guess Jesse, I guess for a little period after that, then going into Obama and these others, there was one person that we felt like had a moral compass that even when we did not understand the totality, we could leave it to a person, and that person would research the facts and kind of help us figure out where we stood on an issue. Okay. This is before social media, before the ability to have everybody's opinion, so rarely, so readily available. It would start with the pastor at church. Not the pastor at church, then would be the mayor or a city official that you look up to. From the mayor, city official, there was some maybe community leader or something that was the moral compass. Then on up through senator and maybe even to president. And then again, getting to Obama. He was sort of that person that, I don't care if you were 12 or if you were 82, you sort of said, I'm going to sort of I know this is an issue. I really know that I should feel a way about it. I don't have all the information. Let me hear what Obama says about it. And we could kind of collectively decide he has our best interests at heart. He's going to tell us which direction we need to leave in. My point is, right now, there's not that there. There's no one that
I think there are people. Social media just makes it divisive. So you have guys like 19 Keys who is doing the whole, like, they're building rebuilding Africa, building subdivisions for us to go back. But they're not going to put him on ABC, and that's why we don't have that. Like, for him to be on ABC, he would have to do something extreme enough for them to feel like we gonna put him in mainstream media and they're gonna try to kill him and slander him and everything else, because they do not want strong Black men to be in places of leadership. So I think now it's on us as the individuals to be like, okay, I like what 19 Keys is talking about. Do I want to invest in this? I see him proving it. Because the other thing is, sometimes people sell us a bill of goods based on community, and we gonna come together and do this new Black Wall Street, and then they run off with the money. Yeah. And they scammers. So I think, yeah.
All right, so here's the thing. I hate to cut it off, but I do want to respect you all's time, because we're going to try to get one more segment in and close this thing out. And the truth is, if we get into the discussion about who's going to be the Black leader, that's another show. That is an entirely whole other show. And don't get me wrong, I would love to have that discussion to figure out what that means, Black leadership, and what we require right now, because I think it's something different than what it's been in the past. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to take our guests to the crossroads with The Choice Is Yours.
This is Ingrid Ross Cochran. I'm a psychology professor and trauma expert, and that's The Scenario.
Hey, what's up? This is Anthony Hamilton, and you're checking me out right here on The Scenario Radio Show.
All right, we hear that music, you know what it is. It's time once again for us to take our guests to the crossroads with The Choice Is Yours, where we present you with options and then you can choose and we will judge you accordingly. We've been talking a lot about some of the entertainers that we feel have sold out or not sold out. This episode of The Choice Is Yours, this rendition is Sell Out, No Sellout. Beyonce, we were just talking about Tiffany and the blood diamonds that she was wearing, I guess, in a particular promotion. I think Ashley already gave us her answer on this, but we want to find out, do you consider that selling out or not selling out? Go ahead, AG.
I don't think so. Now, again, I will admit that I did not follow that story, completely. I thought you were meaning just on the kind of country tip and going that route or whatnot, but from little that I recall about it, no, I didn't see it as a sellout move.
I don't necessarily think it's a sellout move. If she didn't go against her own moral code of conduct, then I don't see it as a sellout. We all complicit in something. The kids in factories make my shoes, so I don't think it's a sellout.
Okay, all right.
I don't think it was a great decision, but I don't think it was a sellout decision.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I don't know if I call it sellout. I think it's great to, when you find out something doesn't meet a certain standard, that you at least make sure to acknowledge that it doesn't meet a certain standard.
Yeah. I also say why did you do it? Because that plays a big part into, for me personally, of you selling out. Because if it's like, oh, I wanted to be able to elevate myself as a Black woman and have influence in this, and you got a plan, cool. If you just did it for the bag, then you probably sold out.
All right. Okay. What we got next, Dana? Jay-Z. Here's where it comes in for Jay-Z, and this is why we're asking this particular question. Who has partnered with the NFL? And I find a way to bring the NFL into a lot of these discussions lately, because I'm always thinking about the idea of what happened with Kaepernick. And we were told that, well, the time for protest is over. That's what Jay-Z said. And he said that the time for protest is over. We're partnering with the NFL, and now we're going to make a difference from the inside. And that difference so far has been several Super Bowl halftime performances. I don't know what those do for our community, but maybe you feel differently. Sell out, no sellout. Jay-Z, what do you think, Danielle?
Questionable. I wouldn't necessarily label him a sellout. I definitely don't like the time for protest is over comment specifically, because I don't think you get to dictate that as a billionaire that is not doing this out the kindness of your heart. I'm fairly certain he benefits in multiple ways from having this position inside. So I don't think that he gets to be the one to dictate how other people move when it comes to the NFL and the decisions we make. I do appreciate that he has put on other folks, so it's not just him benefiting. There are other artists that have benefited from the exposure. Not necessarily our community has benefited, but other artists in our community have benefited. So I wouldn't necessarily label him as a sellout, but it is a questionable move to me.
Mm-hmm. AG, what about you?
Yeah, again, talking about, who he's been to the community in its totality. I think we again tend to take someone's, I'll call it, worst moment, as it were, and then so kind of make that sort of their entire legacy or whatnot. But we've also known about some of the great things, and this is not defending him. I would say this around anyone who had a history of things. We just have to be very careful about taking, a moment and sort of making that someone's, whole history. We know about, making the movies with starring the Black folks, and we know about him paying for things with Meek Mills and others, and we know about the Khalif Crowder, story, and even though that ended very tragically with his death anyway, I mean, there's all these other things and all these examples of ways that he and his family and his foundation have sort of helped to then say, and I 100% agree to Danielle, I think that was completely out of, he should not have mentioned it. I understand the sentiment, but just saying the time for, marching or whatever is over. This, you being in charge of the talent for the NFL ain't creating
activism.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's not keeping us from needing to march about things that really matter. What it did was present the opportunity for the NFL to put a lot of great Black acts on the stage, on the biggest, arguably the biggest, we're not even arguably, on the biggest stage that there is in music. And so we've seen some of our great artists be able to do that, whether that Usher or 50 Cent and Dr. Dre and that whole thing. We've seen the list that he's put together. He didn't cure cancer, and he sure didn't solve black and white issues or anything. But I think he did his part. But I think that was definitely misspeaking on that regard. You didn't just solve civil rights, bro. You put, but you did do it. You did do a significant thing that I think will help a lot of people. And
I don't know about that, but I hear what you're saying. Ashley, what do you think?
I agree with everybody else. Like, I don't personally think Jay-Z is a sellout because he's done a lot of other things. I do agree that was a bad phrase to use in that moment, because it does give, like, you finna run for president and do something monumental. Like, the time for protest is over. Like, it just made me think of like the Hunger Games or something. And I'm not even a big protest person, but when you say a phrase like that, I feel like you got something major coming behind it. So yeah, for you to just be like, oh, and we now curate the entertainment for the NFL, it's like, okay. On top of that, Colin Kaepernick kept crying to get back in the NFL. So I feel like, why are we mad at Jay-Z when the man that we supposed to have been standing behind wanted to go back to where he was ousted from? So I'm not gonna be mad at Jay-Z. Like, if Colin Kaepernick would have got back in there and Jay-Z would have been like, nope, I'm not gonna do nothing for the NFL. I'm standing on business for Colin. We'd still be getting the Rolling Stones at the halftime show, and Colin Kaepernick would be back in the NFL, and Jay-Z would have stood on business for nothing.
I agree that it wasn't selling out. But here's the thing that I think we tend to overlook too much. And I thought about this ever since the year that Dre and Snoop and all of them were performing. Everybody was celebrating like we did it. Like, what do? We didn't do anything. The black people performing at the Super Bowl is not really progress. That's who else were they going to get to perform? The biggest, we sell more music than anybody else. We move culture. I don't think that's progress. And I think we treat it like it was something special because they got a black dude to bring black people in to perform at the Super Bowl. And it's like they had to do that. Those people, Usher should be at the Super Bowl. Rihanna should be at the Super Bowl. These people should be at it's no reason that they wouldn't be at the Super Bowl. They weren't locking us out. It's not like, yeah, of course they could get the Rolling Stones, but you should get the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones were one of the biggest acts there ever was. And all of the acts that they put on were black people who draw enough attention. And they're not really doing us any favors by bringing us on to have us perform and not paying us just so that we can get a couple of more record sales. It's good that they were there for them. That's great. I'm not knocking them being there. I'm just saying that's not really progress. I don't.
It's not progress, but I do think they locked us out because they were not booking black people for the Super Bowl like they do now. Like they will
Janet messed that up.
They will give you like a little 30 seconds, like Katy Perry bring out Missy, but we were not headlining Super Bowls before that.
Not been in that position, you would have got Shabuzi last year because he was the bigger story than Kendrick. Well, I don't say maybe the year before last. He was the bigger story at the time and had the longest charted song, and like so that would have been your black representative, I guess is what I'm saying. Is that I guess they would have put him on that stage and say, "See, here we gave you a black person."
Yeah, I guess I'm probably phrasing it wrong. I'll put it this way: I will never watch the Super Bowl halftime show and see a black person perform and consider them a representative. I'll just see them as a performer. I'll put it that way.
That's fair. I think Kendrick definitely. We wouldn't have got Kendrick halftime show without Jay-Z.
Oh hell no! You wouldn't have got Usher. I'm telling you, you would not have gotten Usher just because Usher was not the hottest guy. Usher had the catalog, and everyone we knew that was the right choice. When he said that, everybody on this phone and everybody know because he had the history of. He had not had an album out in a little. He put an album out after that. After the performance, but he ended up being the right guy. I don't think he would have been in the running to do it. I think that Jay-Z knew that he had the type of catalog, had that 100 show run going on in Vegas, had the type of show and the type of performer. Usher was the reason Jay-Z is in that position. Let me just say, his pick for Usher, his pick for Kendrick, because Kendrick, while the song was super hot, would not have been the first choice of the NFL if they had been in a position to choose them. So I'm saying I hear you, Van, but definitely Jay-Z has had his picks and him being behind the picks have definitely been the reason why you've seen the accident. Dr. Dre would not have been chosen as the main person and then to fill everybody around. Rihanna, maybe, but what was Rihanna's last album? You know what I'm saying? Like it's so
maybe they wouldn't have been the choice. I'm just saying they've all sold millions and millions and millions of records, and millions and millions and millions of white people know who they are, and millions of white people bought their stuff. And so if it was even if it was a barrier, I guess what I'm saying is even if there was a barrier, it ain't really a barrier that once it was broken felt much like a win to me. That's all I'm saying. Black Lives Matter. We mentioned Black Lives Matter earlier, and one of the things that came up, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter caught a lot of flack for buying several houses, most in the millions of dollars, maybe 1 million, 2, 3 million. And there was a $6 million house in California as well. Now, there's a lot of details to this because there was a lot of controversy around it. But I think it's important to make sure, as AG has often pointed out, that we are aware of the details. The particular leader, her name Patrice Colors, she got a lot of scrutiny for purchasing those homes. The properties that she purchased on the behalf of BLMGN. Now, here's the thing: that's Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. That is not Black Lives Matter. It was actually an entirely different entity. They are not the same entity. Everybody who kept talking about it saying Black Lives Matter was purchasing these homes, which was not the case. Whatever the case, that organization had purchased homes, had made millions and millions of dollars themselves. And what the backlash was that a lot of people whose names had been used, who had slain family members, had not been receiving any type of help or any type of money. And a lot of them had a lot of pushback about the idea that these homes were being bought. And according to her, those homes were not being bought just to live in. They were being bought to be used for them to start media, which was interesting because she could have bought commercial properties to do commercial things, but they bought private properties. Whatever the case, there's a lot of things that kind of go into that. I don't know how familiar all of you are with the whole situation, but what is your take? Sell out, no sell out?
They sold out, in my opinion. Like, even when you take the nonprofit name and you combine it with Black Lives Matter, just because you put media group or whatever on the end, like, that's too convoluted. It's too confusing. And it's something that y'all said y'all weren't gonna do. So it seems like you tried to find a loophole to stay in it. And then, if I'm not mistaken, they took some white man money to kind of fund some stuff too. I just feel like whatever they were doing behind the scenes, it got real messy. I don't think they had enough transparency. And I'm with you. If you wanted houses for media, you should have got a place, a commercial place, and something that was open to the public, like a nonprofit. Okay, now all creatives, Black creatives, can come here and create content or whatever the goal was for you having this media space. But I just didn't like the way that it looked behind the scenes. It looked messy. It felt messy. It felt like a sellout. Like, y'all, I'm not saying that they didn't start from a good place and that they didn't have good intentions. It just felt real like, dang, as soon as the money came, it became about y'all buying these goods and doing these things or whatever. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. AG, what about you?
I think that the support that they got obviously was coming off of something that was very emotional and very electric and very much, people assumed that the money was going to be used in the way that they gave it. And I think it was also akin to giving, to these NIL deals, and you giving, a family that never dealt with money millions of dollars and expecting them to be able to, take care of it and to not make some of the same mistakes with $1 million that you was making with $100. If you don't know how to spend it, don't know how to save it, don't know how, now you have to kind of move a little different, and you need. It's definitely a sellout situation. It's definitely where, at the very least, where there were people on the side that said, "See, I told you they was going to do that." It perpetuated a stereotype, and I think, unfortunately, probably had adverse effects on people that were trying to give to other worthwhile organizations that really are out there putting in the work, because they saw what happened to this. So I hate that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, as I mentioned before, Black Lives Matter hasn't had anything to do with these particular things, but because that name has been associated with this other thing that one of the women stepped out and decided to create, which made $90 million. Made $90 million in 2020. That other organization, not Black Lives Matter. That
made or raised.
They raised $90 million in 2020.
Off the strength of the Black Lives Matter name, because just because you put media group behind it, people don't know the difference. So
exactly.
At that point, you become a scammer. Like, because if you got $90 million, you could have, he's scamming too, but you and Dr. Umar could have got together and finished that school. Like, $90 million, we don't see nothing in the community come from it. And I'm not saying that you have to go build a whole city like Wakanda, but
could with $90 million.
With not $90 million you could, but
at least start with the town hall.
Yeah, like where you bought a couple of houses but you talking about Black Lives Matter, you didn't do nothing for the Black lives.
Yeah. And I'll add one more wrinkle, then we'll move on to the next one. So far, they haven't found that any of the money that was raised was used to buy the houses. Because the same woman who started this was also an author who had a bestseller and generated a lot of income from that and other ventures. So it's still it becomes a really murky thing. So yeah,
I don't trust it. I ain't saying she done it.
Yeah, I hear you. Like I said, as of now, they have yet to have found any, misappropriation of those funds. So
what at 90 million at?
That's a great question. That is a good question. Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying it's really murky. Yeah,
the only question, because you got your own money, but again, not knowing, not having dealt with that much, if that is indeed the case, potentially you just don't. You got to move different in some to some degree, and you just don't know that. We don't grow up traditionally thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, everybody's favorites. We've talked about it a little bit. Let's make it official. Sell out, no sellout. Nelly and Snoop. What's your stance?
I'm gonna say Snoop sold out. Snoop sold all the way out because the tirade he went on in 2016 when Trump won, like, baby, that's a hard flip. Like, I would have had too much. I don't think I love money that much no more because God done some things in my life. But I'm real prideful. And I feel like it would have been hard on my pride to be like, just kidding. I'm going to go perform at this inauguration after I done said all this stuff about this man on camera. Behind the scenes, I might have been like, well, only know people know me, God, and the person I talk to. But that man made a scene and then did a 180. Nelly, he been in the country music space for a long time, so I'm not really surprised that his stance is his stance. Like, is it selling out to a degree? Maybe, but he ain't never done nothing to me in my opinion, that has been pro-Black to be like, oh man, he sold out. It's like, were you ever in? Kinda, and not to say that he was anti-Black or whatever, but it's just like, okay, you did kind of what we expected you to do. You kick it with Florida Georgia Line. People who kick it with them, I'm assuming.
Yeah. AG, what about you, man?
It's complicated. Like I said, I ain't gonna lie. It's like I don't. It's complicated. I understand what everybody's saying. I get it. Don't get me wrong. And again, I'm being a contrarian to a degree, and I understand that, and I'm all right. I can deal with that. I got tough skin. But I feel, but this dude been saying all this stuff, like, why is this the thing that this man was on trial for murder? Like, what is this? But him going to take some money from this is the thing that's supposed to be the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that's mighty hypocritical to some degree, but I understand why people are upset about it. And I don't think that in my opinion, I don't necessarily know that I'm gonna separate Nelly from Snoop just because I don't really want to. I think that they both took money to perform for someone. So if we're going to accept the background information on one, then you have to do it on the other as well. And if you do it on one and say on Nelly's side, it's not something that he's done, before, we didn't necessarily see coming. And Snoop has been telling you all along that bees ain't nothing but hoes and tricks. Like, you knew what there was coming. You knew that snake bite was there. You knew that snake was gonna bite you. It was a snake bite. So that's what I'm saying. It's sort of, when you say sellout, I think that dude did what he thought.
I think we wanted to believe that Snoop was playing or joking or entertaining us in his music. Like, yeah, I think there's a part of us that knew he was really womanizing and stuff, but that's a part of the rapper lifestyle. I think him performing for Trump is kind of like being slapped. it's kind of like a woman being with a man that cheat all the time, and she know he a cheater, but then he hit her in the face one time, and it's like, wait a minute, it was one thing you cheating, but you hitting me now too, fool.
No.
I feel like that with Snoop is like, we knew you was a womanizer, like we been doing that. And you was still Uncle Snoop, but like you just smacked us in the face.
But this time I walked in on you.
That too, like
I figure you cheated because I found some numbers in your pocket, but this time I walked in on you. Now I know you're cheating.
So like we can contort the story in our mind to believe what we want to believe, because these are people we look up to or grew up with. Like, I'm a big Beyonce fan. Like, I can tell you the date and the time that I became a Beyonce fan, because I was a Destiny's Child fan before I was ever a Beyonce fan. So it would crush me if it came out that she was just doing some completely scandalous stuff. And I think a lot of people, we can go in our own delusion and videoed it. So it's like we can go in our own delusion and be like, Beyonce would never do that. But at the end of the day, it's like, we don't know these people. When people ask me if I know people in real life, I'd be like, I know them, but I don't know them because I don't know what's coming behind the did you know that day? Like, no, I didn't know that. I didn't know Van was doing all of that. I know Van. I don't know no Van. So I think it's that we can kind of distort reality with people that we look up to and kind of tell ourselves like, Snoop ain't really out here like slapping bitches. Like, he ain't really doing this. But then when he stand up there with Trump, it's like, now I can't fight it no more. He's telling me to my face that if the money's right, I'm gonna do this. And I don't believe Snoop need the money. The man had just done the Olympics. I feel like that was a lot of money he got.
Yeah. Also, it also raises the question for me a lot of times when I hear people say, "Well, he was doing this. Why are we saying something now?" Is there? Does that mean we should never say anything? If we let something slide, should we just always let it slide, or is there ever a time that is still good enough for us to say, okay, well, now's the time to say something?
I mean, if it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's wrong today, if it was wrong when he was saying it then, it's still wrong today. 3 6 was bumping in '96 when I was listening. The stuff they were saying is still terrible today. It's still absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they were saying I was listening to A-Ball MJG the other day, and I was like, I cannot believe that they have not been canceled. And some of the stuff that they were saying in some of those songs, it's wrong. Now, then if they do something else today, it doesn't say, well, now I need to go back and listen to all this stuff and really cancel them or something like that. It's like, no, let's create the moral compass and judge everybody within the same framework, if that's what y'all are doing. Because I feel too that we don't do that. We tend to create the framework and then we give people passes based upon, to your point, what have you done for me lately? If someone has a transgression that is against the morals and principles, I mean, let's take finding out that Jesse Jackson got a baby on the side after he's been telling you on the side, after he's been, preaching, this thing for so long. Well, did he get canceled after that, or were people really just disappointed in Jesse after that? I don't know. That was the reason why he didn't get, elected for president or whatnot. But I'm saying he didn't have a pattern of behavior that leads you to believe that that's what he was going to do. These guys have had a pattern of behavior to tell you that they are all about the money. I'm going to get my bag. This is what I'm going to do. Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Like, they've been telling you to your face what their moral compass was. Why are you surprised now that they did something that actually aligned with what they've been telling you all this time? What's the surprise here?
I don't even know if it's a surprise. It's just disappointment. It's like
disappointment.
Snoop, I'm not surprised that Snoop did it. I am disappointed that Snoop did it. Like, not at all. I'm not surprised, which I'd have tried to put myself in a place now that nothing surprised me because I don't know these people. But it's like, okay, I'm disappointed that in a time with a man that is this divisive, that ran on this platform, who basically told us he hate us, he's aligned himself with Nazis and stuff, that you still could come up with something in your brain that would excuse you standing on this stage and basically co-signing him among the Black community, or just period, because
yeah,
all people listen to Snoop.
I'm saying if you would be upset and mad if Obama got on stage with Trump because he didn't show you a history of that type of behavior. They've shown you the history. Soldier Boy, I would expect Soldier Boy to take that bag. As much as from you listen to anything Soldier Boy said in the last 20 years, there's nothing that would have led me to believe that he would have said no to that bag.
Yeah, but I do think it is something to be said for the fact that Snoop was very vocal about Trump and in an entirely different direction. I think that's some of the, because my thing about the Snoop thing, like I really don't, I'm not thinking about Nelly at all, but my thing about the Snoop thing is he was very vocal about how he felt about Trump one way, and then he decided, but when he got pushback on what he had said before and how it didn't align with his actions, he didn't try to say, well, okay, well, yeah, you got me. He tried to defend it. He tried to defend it and act like, well, no, he's being a martyr now. And
he
my thing is,
down.
you don't get to be a martyr after you've done what you've done. So when people call you out on what you said,
you're absolutely right.
And he didn't just say, I don't like Trump, I don't support Trump. This man said anybody who performed with Trump, align themselves with Trump is a coon. Yeah. That's a direct quote. So, sir, Nelly is off the hook because he didn't come out and say that. I'm just going to assume that was his vote in 2016. Yeah. You specifically said that anybody who did what you just did is a flat out coon. And then when people say, okay, but you said anybody who do this a coon, it's like, well, Mercury in the retrograde and this, that. You got all these excuses for why it's okay for you to coon now. It's like,
no, that's definitely the added layer that Nelly and again, I don't know, Soldier Boy could have a video out there saying the same thing. I have no idea from years ago. I don't know, but the added layer to that, and that's sort of what I'm getting to, and kind of when I say it's complicated. Yes, to your point, I'm disappointed. Why you'd be disappointed? Not you. I don't mean you. Why we should be disappointed that a guy that's been saying what he's saying on record for so long would do that, I don't know. But I do know that I'm more disappointed because you said what you said in 2017 and now you flipped. However, I will say that's entertainment. When the allegations came about Diddy, the first thing he said is, I would never put my hands on him. He came out with this whole long statement about what he would never do. And then 3 days later, he was whooping Cassie's like natural behind. The first thing they're going to do is tell you what you want to hear or what they're not going to do or what they don't stand for. And then they'll turn around and do that. Not an excuse. I'm just telling you, I don't believe them when they say stuff like, yes, he said that. I don't remember that clip from then, but I don't put it past that man to go and take some money just based on what he said in the past. It just didn't. Maybe that's why I'm not looking at it as sellout or not sellout, because it didn't surprise me. It wasn't out the blue. It wasn't like he did this and no way I could expect him to do that. I 100% would expect him to do that. Yeah. BB Winans, not so much. You know what I'm saying? It's just there are people I wouldn't expect that out of him. Yeah, I can see him taking that bag.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, it does leave us with the question of just because whether we expect it doesn't mean it isn't a sellout. But that's another story. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I think it's been a pretty good show. Unfortunately, I know Danielle McGee Gibson had to move along. We're getting ready to wrap things up. Like we always do about this time, we're going to close things out by finding out what's the scenario. We're going to start on the other side of the glass, the virtual glass, as it were, with my producer, Dana. Dana, what's the scenario? What's your closing thought?
Man, say what you mean what you say, and do what you gotta do, and that's the scenario.
All right. Ashley Autumn from Talented Tent Entertainment, what's the scenario?
The scenario is I'll never tell anybody what they can't do, but I will let you know if it's a cliff there. You might be the little birdie that can fly, but if you can't, it's a long way down, and it hurt.
That's a scenario. All right. Tell them if there's a cliff there. All right. A.G. Granderson, what's the scenario, bro?
I just think that we've got to I like to listen to both sides of most arguments. I don't want us to be so quick. I do want us to, admonish people when they do things that are definitely that do not align with sort of where we need to be going as a people. I think that there are circumstances that people don't always take all the facts into account. Sometimes, again, my wife would say, "You don't need to know. You just whip his ass." Yeah, I'm not happy with him. Something happened. So I get those things. I just it's a very interesting conversation for us to be having right now, and I think it is time. I would love to see someone emerge that can sort of help bring sort of this conversation around what needs to happen. Right now, I don't see anybody emerging that is going to keep this guy from running for a third term, and that is frightening. And whether that is being divisive about who performs at his functions or who's standing up to him, whether you're Harvard or whether you're an individual, I think that our focus has got to be right now not on uh, boots on the ground or whatever the song is and clapping fans. We need to be focused on sort of how we collectively come together and sort of get this guy out and get that mentality out, because it's really going to do a really, really, really horrible thing on us over the next 3 and some change years if we don't go ahead and try to figure out who or what is going to help lead us out of it.
That's good. Van, what's the scenario?
Hattie McDaniel won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for Gone with the Wind. First Black person to ever win an Oscar, and she played an enslaved person. It was, in its time, controversial to a certain degree, and there were Black people who were not crazy about the idea that this woman played this role or won this Oscar. There were others who felt like it was progress, and to some degree, both of them were probably right. The same things that people felt about Step and Fetch It, Jim Brown later on as an activist, all of the different athletes and entertainers and people who have come before who had to negotiate against white supremacy and what was too far and what was not enough. And the goalpost kept moving. The goal, what we decided was acceptable, kept shifting because we were in a conversation, and that conversation is still happening. Hopefully, as we continue to have that conversation, we will ever be mindful of what our standards are. And when we're not meeting those standards, we decide to put our foot down and say, this isn't enough. I don't always know what the answer to that is going to be, but I do know we have to keep having that conversation. We do have to keep putting a standard out in front of us, and we do have to be willing to stand by that standard, even when other people don't think that standard is enough or that standard is too much. Let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. And as those measurements keep moving and the goals keep changing, hopefully we find ourselves moving closer and closer to the goal that we want. And we're moving forward and not backward. So I don't know what those answers are. Hopefully today, if you've been listening to the show, you have a better understanding or a better idea. You've heard something that will allow you to be a little bit more mindful of what it means for us as a people to have progress. And that's all we've been trying to do here today, is to have that conversation so you can do that. Keep having that conversation, and that's the scenario. I want to thank our guests, A.G. Granderson, Ashley Otter from Talented 10th Entertainment, and Danielle McGee Gibson from Black Business Boom, or Boom, as some people apparently want to call it. On behalf of the team, Dana Dang doing the dang thing on the other side of the glass, I am Van Everett saying take care of one another, and God willing, we'll talk again soon. Peace out.